This is definitely the worst Gary Stu protagonist of the July series. Right at the start, he turns dark and decides to seek revenge on the goddess. This is because after his entire class is transported to another world, everyone awakens powerful cheats, except for him, the weakest E-rank hero. Even his innate skill is the most useless status anomaly. Therefore, in order not to hold back the other heroes, the goddess not only incites the whole class to mock him, but also throws him into a hellish abandoned relic to fend for himself. Before teleporting, Memori was invisible in his class and had a dark and introverted personality due to childhood domestic abuse. On the school bus during a field trip, the class leader Ayaka was bothered by the delinquent Oyamada, and everyone else was indifferent, even the teacher pretended not to see. Unexpectedly, the usually low-key Memori stood up and asked Oyamada to return the book to Ayaka, only to be mocked by Oyamada. The normally timid Memori was too scared to retort until the class's most handsome Kirihara spoke up, and Oyamada stopped and even apologized to Ayaka. Everyone praised Kirihara for easily resolving the situation and for his gentleness. The bus gradually became quiet again, and Memori reflected on his actions. If it had been before, he definitely wouldn't have stood up. Was it because of that dream? Just then, a bright light suddenly filled the bus, and the next second, everyone was in a grand hall with a beautiful goddess standing above. The goddess called them heroes from another world, introduced herself as Vishis, and told the students and teachers that whenever a great evil emperor arises in this world, heroes are summoned from other worlds. 200 years ago, the evil emperor was defeated by the heroes of that time, and now, unexpectedly, he has revived. The goddess earnestly hoped that these heroes would help them. The students immediately started discussing, trying to explain it as a prank or a film shoot, but no trick could teleport an entire busload of people to such a bizarre place instantly. The teacher, being an adult, stepped forward to maintain order, but was immediately distracted by the goddess's attractive figure. Only Memori instantly accepted everything. It seems they really arrived in another world. Even in such a situation, Kirihara remained calm and quickly assessed the situation. In any case, they have to defeat that evil emperor. What would happen if they don't? The goddess answered that they would not be able to return to their original world, because the reverse summoning requires a special magical substance called Evil King Element, found only in the heart of the evil emperor, or absorbed by the crystal on Vicious's head when the evil emperor is destroyed, to send them back. This bizarre mission naturally caused some dissatisfaction, but unexpectedly, the goddess kneeled down right then and there. Ayaka, the class leader, asked the key question. They were all ordinary people, so how could they defeat the evil demon emperor? As heroes from another world, these students would naturally be granted special abilities. However, Vishis didn't rush to explain. Instead, she first demonstrated a brutal slaughter, allowing a monster to devour a struggling man completely. Then, she obliterated the monster with a fireball, showcasing the power of magic, a power that each of them would possess. The students then started lining up to test their aptitude with a crystal ball. The brightness and light emitted by the crystal ball would indicate their respective aptitude levels. Just as someone produced an exceptionally bright light, Kirihara stepped up and the crystal ball exploded. The goddess couldn't help but applaud him. It was the highest S-level rating. Soon after, Ayaka also caused a crystal ball to explode. Other somewhat attractive students also awakened various powerful abilities, pleasing the goddess with the summoning results. Until Memori stepped up, the crystal ball emitted only a faint purple light. Vichis's voice immediately cooled, calling the next person. Memori could only silently walk away. At that moment, there was a stir again. Standing before the crystal ball was Anne, the lowest ranked in their class, showing a reaction similar to the once strongest dark hero. Anne immediately flashed a villainous smile, seeming ready to turn his fate around in this new world. Then, panels appeared before everyone, showing only Memori as the weakest E-rank hero. The goddess glanced at his panel and walked away. It also listed his innate skill. After the panels and titles were displayed, the status of everyone in the class changed. At that moment, the goddess announced an important ceremony and had Memori placed in a teleportation circle below. Since he was the weakest among these heroes, and based on past experiences, The lowest-ranked heroes often hindered the higher-ranked ones. Thus, they were usually dealt with directly, not by killing them, but by giving them a chance to survive, by sending them to an abandoned relic to fend for themselves. Mimori hadn't expected his adventure in this new world to end before it even started. He quickly mentioned his innate skill of status anomaly, but the goddess informed him it was a useless skill due to its low success rate. Even against lower-level monsters, the effect was poor, and Mimori's other stats were also pathetically low. Essentially, he was considered a hopeless case. No one else was willing to speak up for Mimori, urging the goddess to proceed quickly. Even Anne, who had previously spoken to Mimori, came over to mock him. However, the goddess still provided what was due, throwing down a mere leather bag. This is considered a special item given to Mimori. It will glow when magic essence is infused into the gem, but it has no other use. Just as Mimori was about to be sent away, the class leader stood up to try and stop it, but was knocked down by Vici's with a punch. Mimori reluctantly unleashed his skill, but Vici's effortlessly deflected it, as she was protected by a membrane that completely blocked status anomaly spells. The goddess mocked Mimori briefly before Kirihara suddenly attacked her, claiming he just wanted to test her. The goddess did not pursue his impulsive behavior and prepared to carry out Mimori's exile ceremony. Mimori shed tears of frustration, but thereby released the real self inside him. Before being teleported away, he fiercely left the goddess with a warning. "If I come back alive, be mentally prepared." The next second, he was sent into the abandoned relic. The glowing skin helped Mimori grasp the terrain slightly, and he saw a broken skull on the ground. Suddenly sensing danger, he instinctively ducked and ran forward without daring to look back at what was chasing him. The monster immediately followed, splashing green juice from its legs. The previously bold Mimori was scared into tears, but his expression quickly turned to a smile. Unable to run anymore, he collapsed on the ground and faced the attacking monster. Mimori had no choice but to try using a paralyzing spell, and to his surprise, it worked. The monster was frozen in place, allowing Mimori to quickly escape while recalling what the goddess had said, guessing that he was just lucky. But then another monster appeared, its murderous intent nearly overwhelming Mimori. "I don't want to die," filled his mind as he used his skill again, and it worked once more. This made Mimori start to seriously consider that the last two uses of his skill were not flukes. If the magic system in this other world was completely different from Mimori's status anomaly skills, that might explain it. He summoned his panel and saw he had only a little magic left, but Mimori still tried to inflict poison on the monster, successfully using it along with paralysis, though this completely depleted his magic. So far, the success rate of his ability was 100%. But what would happen if he continued to use his status anomaly skills like this? As he pondered, the previously paralyzed monster caught up again. With no magic left, Mimori once again fell into despair. According to the plot, shouldn't someone appear to save him at such times? Memories of the recent mockery and childhood beatings filled his mind, along with hatred and frustration. Indeed, he was neither a hero nor the protagonist, just an ordinary bystander. How could he expect anyone else to save him? He had to save himself. Mimori turned and faced the monster. How will he escape? Find out in our next episode. Just after arriving in another world, Mimori was sent to an abandoned ruin as a useless by the goddess. Now Mimori is caught in a pincer attack with only a little magic left. To continue casting spells, he must use his own magic beyond the active state modifiers. After using 2 spells, he finally makes the monsters temporarily fall. However, Mimori found that he can't use the same spell consecutively on the same target, and using his magic results in rapidly increasing fatigue. More monsters kept coming. Now it's a race between Mimori defeating them and running out of magic. Casting spells non-stop, Mimori felt his brain might explode. Despite numerous monsters ahead, Mimori had no choice but to fight all out, recklessly casting spells. Just when his body was at its limit, he unexpectedly leveled up at the critical moment, fully restoring his magic. Mimori then began a fierce battle, and as he used more spells, their levels also increased. Now able to lock onto multiple targets, Mimori couldn't help but get excited. It seems his useless skills are only so to the goddess. Here, his success rate is 100%. After immobilizing all the monsters, Mimori swiftly defeated them. These once fearsome monsters became mere experience points in his eyes. and his active state values multiplied with his level. Except for the high initial magic value that grew significantly, Memori's other stats were not so good. Fortunately, after clearing this wave of monsters, he leveled up many times, quickly reaching level 501. His leveling speed was astonishingly fast, causing the remaining monsters to flee upon seeing him. Then Memory began collecting equipment from the corpses in the ruin, offering a moment of silence for them. But no matter how much he leveled up, he couldn't survive without food. Eventually, Memory turned his attention to the monsters he had killed. After detoxifying the corpses, he found their skins too hard to pierce and had to eat the soft eyeballs raw, which were too disgusting to consume. Suddenly, Memory noticed that the magic stone on the skin changed color, its purple area expanding. Upon inspection, he found a bag of beef jerky and a bottle of Coca-Cola. Do you understand the value of these items in another world? It turns out the goddess did leave Memory a cheat, and this was the most useful one. After eating and drinking, Memory resumed his leveling spree, now easily defeating those monsters and jumping to over level 600. Reflecting on his painful childhood experiences, Memory still struggles to let go. Fortunately, his kind aunt and uncle rescued him from a dire situation, showing him warmth. Memory wanted to be as kind as they were, but never managed it. Now, looking at the bodies scattered around, he feels indifferent. Therefore, he decides to face his true self and continues to roam the abandoned ruins, collecting equipment and leveling up by slaying monsters. As he progresses, Memory reaches a door. After infusing magic into the door's magical stone, it opens. Inside, he finds the corpses of several adventurers holding hands, seemingly resigned to their fate together with no signs of struggle. Next to them, a bag full of gems, which Memory promptly collects. He begins searching room by room, but this room consumes much more magic. It contains a single corpse with injuries and a note beside it. Unexpectedly, the corpse is that of the dark hero Anglin, whom the goddess Vishis had also forced to come here. If the reader of the note is determined to escape the ruins, Anglin wishes to entrust his belongings to them. It seems the goddess is not benevolent after all. However, Memory has no intention of saving the world. He only seeks revenge against the goddess. Next, Memory finds a book titled Compendium of Forbidden Arts and a scroll of forbidden spells. Unable to understand the language but aware of its significance due to its hiding place, he plans to decipher it as a trump card for his revenge against the goddess. He opens the book and finds a warning about the soul devourer. After packing up, Memory moves on and encounters another door that seems to require a specific object to open. While searching for the object and checking his status panel, now at level 1000 with over 40,000 magic points, he spots something resembling the soul devourer. It is a floating face that shoots beams from a pearl on its forehead. Memory initially tries a cautious approach, but gets shot through the palm. Realizing the pearl must be dealt with first, he needs to shout the name of the ability loud enough to inflict a status effect, but he is too far away. As he contemplates a breakthrough, the walls around him start collapsing, and the soul devourer slowly drifts towards him. It appears this entity is the master of the ruins. If Memory can defeat the soul devourer, he will conquer the ruins completely. However, when the soul devourer floated next to Memory, it did not attack. Instead, it began to vomit wildly. The mud it vomited turned into several people. Memory understood this was showing him how the Forsaken looked at death. These were their final expressions, used to test Memory's reaction for amusement. Memory felt disgusted by the soul devourer's macabre sense of humor. Yet, the creature emerged from the wall beside him, emitting a piercing scream. Memory had no choice but to immobilize the mud people, but he couldn't poison them as they all had human forms. He couldn't bring himself to do such a cruel act. He exaggerated his actions and expressions while reciting the cliched lines, much to the delight of the soul devourer. So, it vomited out another group of mud people to approach Memory. The more Memory suffered, the more excited the soul devourer became, not realizing this was a trap set by Memory. As the creature grew more excited, Memory's performance intensified, even to the point of tears. You should win an Oscar for such acting, he thought. He could feel the creature's joy transmitting to him. Now, when it was most complacent, Memory instantly used his skill to immobilize the soul devourer. It was the perfect moment for both, exposing the creature's vulnerability. The soul devourer, furious and embarrassed, was doomed to fail. After a passionate taunting by Memory, it fell to the ground completely. Memory stopped pretending and showed his true self. Indifferent to the humanoid creatures, he killed all the mud people, and then looked down at the soul devourer with a mocking expression. The creature, enraged but paralyzed, could only watch as Memory fatally poisoned it. With the death of the soul devourer, the souls it had bound were freed. They all thanked Memory and willingly entrusted their relics to him. An old man then asked Memory to deal with the goddess. Memory would have agreed anyway. He removed the pearl from the soul devourer's head and embedded it in the door ahead. It turned out to be the exit of the ruins. Memory said goodbye to the ruins and walked out. They were all transported to another world together. Memory was sent by the goddess to level up alone in an abandoned relic, while his classmates engaged in team battles here. The strongest in the class, Kirihara, had only reached level 18. However, this scene of teamwork wouldn't last long, as some were already planning to go solo, such as a girl named Asagi. She approached Kobato, the most harmless person in the class, believing the class would eventually split up. Thus, she wanted to secure allies early. Asagi, a B-rank warrior, aimed to recruit Kobato, a D-rank warrior who surely wouldn't make it into Kirihara's group. Meanwhile, the Takao sisters decided to operate on their own. As for their kind-hearted class president Ayaka, it was likely she would die soon. Asagi coerced and tempted Kobato, urging her to recognize her own position. Choosing Kobato, who was not very strong, was strategic for Asagi because Kobato had an attractive figure which could be useful in critical moments. After explaining this, Asagi had her minions bring over a small monster, a test from the goddess that required them to kill it personally. Under Asagi's pressure, the gentle Kobato finally raised her sword, becoming a member of Asagi's group, but still thinking about the abandoned Memory. Whether it was Memory being punished by the goddess, or now, she felt powerless. On the other side, Ayaka woke up from a large bed, her abdomen still aching. Thinking of Memory made her upset. She went to see the goddess. Vishis was hypocritically compassionate, claiming she had no choice, and then updated Ayaka on recent events during her faint. The goddess had given everyone a test to see if they could kill a monster. Several had failed to do so, and she had no choice but to abandon them, as her country did not need warriors who could not fulfill their duties. Ayaka bluntly disagreed with the goddess's actions. Vishis, unconcerned, revealed herself as a profit-driven deity. Ayaka, an S-rank warrior, declared she could accomplish the mission for those students who couldn't overcome the test, hoping the goddess would revoke their punishment. Unexpectedly, Vishis agreed and reconciled with Ayaka through a handshake, which Ayaka felt was as cold as the goddess's heart. Meanwhile, Memory finally emerged from the abandoned relic. Although he had reached over 1700 levels, his panel values were mainly just high in magic. However, the values didn't matter as much as the innate skills, which Memory used to conquer the relic despite being despised by the goddess. Compared to the relic, the outside forest seemed like a beginner's area. The first monster Memory encountered was a slime, which was being bullied by larger slimes, but resiliently fought back. Moved by its perseverance, Memory intervened, freezing all the slimes and letting the larger ones escape, leaving only the small slime. After giving it some encouragement, he unfroze it, but instead of leaving, the slime followed him. Feeling a kinship with the outcast, Memory put the slime in his hat and continued together. They found a spot to rest, and Memory read a book on forbidden arts, which included a recipe for strengthening slimes. Asking the slime if it wanted to follow him on a dangerous path of revenge, the slime nodded firmly, even changing colors. Memory fully accepted the little slime. In the forest, a chase against a beautiful girl was underway. As her pursuers neared, she recited a spell and drew her sword, swinging it in the air to equip herself with advanced spirit armor. Unexpectedly, they first encountered Memory. Surprised by the sudden appearance of so many people, Memory displayed his acting skills by pretending to be scared. He cautiously asked who they were. Seeing him as weak, they planned to rob him, demanding he hand over his valuables. One of them wanted to test his new blade's sharpness on Memory. As they argued, Memory felt reassured, considering their incompetence. During their bickering, he quietly stepped back, but was noticed by a man with purple hair. Memory pleaded for mercy, which only excited the man further. As he charged with his knife, Mimori used a skill to knock him down, proving his ability to inflict status abnormalities on humans. Convinced of his skill's effectiveness, Mimori stopped acting. He had no sympathy for these scoundrels. They deserved their fate. He killed them all and looted their equipment. However, Mimori sensed another presence, the battle-ready, beautiful girl. She was sweating profusely, having felt her pursuer's presence vanish in an instant, replaced by an unfamiliar and chilling one. Even the spirits sensed danger. Tense, she immediately fired an arrow, which hit only a decoy slime released by Mimori. Exposing herself, Ayaka was immobilized by Mimori. He sensed impurities in her murderous intent and approached to clarify. Mimori explained he was not from around there and hoped she could provide information. After confirming she was not allied with the men, he released her from paralysis, allowing her to speak. Shocked to learn of the men's deaths, she couldn't believe it, as they were powerful, holy guards. However, she trusted Mimori's truthfulness and decided to answer honestly. She confirmed she was not a bad person, prompting Mimori to ask for information. He showed her an ancient text he found in the ruins, which she couldn't read, but knew someone who might. The Forbidden Witch, a dangerous individual exiled for her vast knowledge of world taboos. If Mimori wished to meet her, he would have to travel to the dangerous central region of the continent, the Gold Roost Demon Group. Despite revealing significant information, the beautiful girl felt it was not enough to repay Mimori's life-saving actions. Mimori assured her it was sufficient, reminded of his aunt by her loyalty. After setting his paralysis skill to auto-release in a few minutes, he left. The slime followed him, indicating their next destination was set. All classmates were treated like heroes upon arrival in town. Mimori, however, had just arrived and was thoroughly questioned by the guards. He went to an inn where the innkeeper seemed unfriendly, but when Mimori showed some coins, the innkeeper became submissive and showed a flattering smile. Mimori then adopted a pseudonym, Hati, pretending to be a local. After renting a single room, he changed into clean clothes and went out to explore the town, which was much as he had imagined, complete with various shops and the essential adventurers guild. He then went to a tavern for a meal, where people loudly discussed recent events, which allowed Mimori to gather information easily. For instance, a nearby table discussed which nation's knights or army was the strongest, unanimously voting for the Black Dragon Knights of the Bakuos Empire, a group said to rival the strength of an entire nation on its own. After dinner, Mimori took some food back for his slime and began planning his next steps. He needed to find someone who could decipher a forbidden spellbook, as told to him by a young girl, likely a witch. He also planned to enhance his slime with a monster enhancer. He recalled hearing about the Lord summoning adventurers to explore ruins, which was perfect since he needed the Bone King's bone powder found there. The next day, Mimori attended a meeting about exploring the Maruse ruins, recently discovered to have new levels. The Lord hoped they would explore these new levels and retrieve the Dragon Eye Holy Grail inside, with a reward of 300 gold coins for successful adventurers. While waiting in line to enter the ruins, Mimori witnessed a commotion nearby. A slovenly adventurer was harassing a cloaked young girl, whom Mimori recognized from a previous encounter in the forest. The adventurer insisted she was Saras, the former captain of the Holy Knights of the destroyed Nea Holy Nation, remembering distinctly her ample chest and long ears, which seemed inexplicable in humans. After boldly lifting her hood, it turned out she had normal ears and looked nothing like the described Saras. The girl introduced herself as Misto, not Saras. The adventurer, embarrassed, left hastily after throwing some harsh words. Before heading to the ruins, Mimori decided to do some shopping and ran into Misto again. Recognizing each other, they chatted briefly. Misto admitted she sometimes angered people, but preferred being disliked, and kept at a distance over being liked and approached. Seeing she was a decent person, Mimori asked her to help him shop for gear to avoid being overcharged, offering some compensation. Misto, needing money, agreed, and they exchanged names and started their collaboration. Mimori admitted he had some secrets, so Hati is a pseudonym. Misto thoughtfully did not pry further. Mimori then purchased various items he needed and paid Misto several silver coins as compensation. When they parted, Misto suddenly collapsed. Mimori noticed her severe dark circles, suggesting she hadn't rested for a long time. However, Misto didn't need his concern, so Mimori went to explore the ruins with his slime. Having experienced abandoned ruins, The monsters inside were no challenge for him, and he descended smoothly, though gaining little experience. Mimori overheard a conversation between some adventurers, including the one who had harassed Misto. He was still holding a grudge and wanted someone to kill Misto, letting monsters devour her beautiful face and body. His companions suggested they have their way with her first. Watching coldly, Mimori eventually intervened, pretending to be scared to underestimate them, then immobilized all three with a skill. Reminded of his despicable parents, he killed them and left them for the monsters. Unknowingly, Mimori reached a new floor and decided to rest before entering. While he slept, his slime guarded him. After 3 hours, a refreshed Mimori encountered an adventurer team who informed him of unprecedented occurrences in the ruins. Monsters were mysteriously dying, and the cause was unknown. They planned to investigate and asked if Mimori wanted to join, but he declined. They asked him to inform other mercenaries of these events, which he agreed to, as he was responsible for the monster deaths. This might allow some mercenaries to retreat, easing his concerns. On the new floor, Mimori opened a door and found the Dragon Eye Holy Grail the Lord wanted. However, a large statue was nearby, and Mimori knew it would animate. He immobilized it before it could attack, and just as he picked up the Grail, the statue shattered into several pieces. Mimori pondered his next move when he suddenly sensed another presence. Turning around, he saw Misto. It seemed she also wanted the Holy Grail, so Mimori simply handed it to her as he didn't need it much. Misto, not wanting to accept Mimori's favor for no reason, heard he planned to subdue the monsters below and offered to be his guard. This way, she wouldn't feel indebted. Mimori had a few conditions. Misto could not pry into his privacy. Their relationship would be strictly that of guard and employer, and if he couldn't return to the surface within a day, Misto would have to go back alone. These were minor issues for Misto, who agreed immediately. Once below, she demonstrated her swordsmanship by single-handedly slaying a giant magic flower. Curious, Mimori asked about the Gold Eye and other monsters. Misto explained that Gold Eye monsters yield high experience points, typically considered suitable for heroes from other worlds to level up. Only monsters provide experience points, which explained why Mimori gained nothing from killing those people earlier. He then asked Misto how non-Gold Eye monsters are generally regarded. Surprisingly, some monsters establish good relations with humans. Legend has it that monsters strongly affected by a special miasma released by the evil Great Demon Emperor turn into Gold Eyes, unleashing their brutal instincts. Both Gold Eye monsters and Golden Heroes share this golden characteristic, which Mimori found somewhat ominous. Soon after, they entered a new chamber. Misto sensed a monster's presence following them. Mimori's slime crawled out from his embrace and affectionately rubbed Misto's hand. Seeing it was Mimori's companion, Misto felt relieved. The two rested in the room, and to ensure Misto slept well, Mimori cast a sleep spell on her. He had already confirmed her true identity as the Knight Commander, Saras. Meanwhile, the legendary strongest human arrived at the site where Mimori had killed his pursuers. No wonder Saras dared not sleep. Her ears would show whenever she slept, and she'd revert to her usual appearance upon waking. She only relaxed when she saw Mimori asleep, though Mimori was actually pretending. They continued exploring the labyrinth and soon encountered a powerful monster, the Skeleton King. Saras told Mimori that shattering the silver part of its jaw would defeat it. After strengthening herself, ready to protect Mimori at all costs, Mimori unexpectedly used a paralysis skill, causing the monster's brewing attack to be reabsorbed. Mimori then used poison, quickly defeating the legendary Skeleton King and obtaining the materials she needed. As they prepared to leave, a slime pointed towards a cave with an egg inside. The slime seemed to want Mimori to take the egg, and she did, then returned above ground with Saras. Meanwhile, Mimori's classmates endured brutal training, chased by skeleton knights. One girl, with a broken hand, sat crying on the ground until a friend encouraged her. Then, the righteous class representative Ayaka stepped up to buy time for their escape. Two show-off blondes intervened, repelling the knights with a powerful move but nearly injuring two girls. Thankfully, Ayaka protected them. Despite their confidence, their level, 24, was far below Mimori's. Saras delivered the Dragon Eye Chalice to the Lord. Besides the promised reward of 300 gold coins, the Lord offered further hospitality, so Saras would stay in the town until the next day. Mimori asked her to visit his room by 8 that evening. Saras agreed and arrived on time, just as Mimori's monster enhancer was ready. Mimori wanted to hire Saras as a guard for his journey to the Forbidden Witch's domain in the Golden Nest Monster Swarm, a region teeming with monsters. Having witnessed Saras's abilities in the labyrinth and trusting her, Mimori explained his intentions. The two were heading in the same direction, as Saras also needed to traverse the Golden Nest Monster Swarm. Before collaborating, they agreed to be honest with each other. Mimori had already guessed Saras's true identity, and Saras was hesitant about revealing it. Once Mimori hinted at it, Saras admitted directly that she was indeed the elf paladin. She was using elf magic to hide her true identity, which required sacrificing her desire to sleep, meaning she would revert to her original form as soon as she fell asleep. Saras was being hunted by the Holy Guards because they had accidentally seen her true appearance. After revealing this, she willingly showed her true form, deepening their mutual trust. Mimori also revealed his real name. After making a pact, he gave Saras a blue dragonstone as a reward, which he had found in an abandoned labyrinth. Unexpectedly, it was quite valuable, a rare stone produced by the legendary Azure Dragon and not circulated in the market. The value of this blue dragonstone alone exceeded the reward for the Dragon Eye Chalice. Even after hearing its value, Mimori did not hesitate to offer it as a reward for Saras's services as a guard, and did not delve into any other secrets she might have. Upon returning to her room, Saras wiped down her body, and by the next day, rumors spread that Mimori and Saras had an improper relationship. Mimori was unconcerned, and asked Saras if she had heard of the forbidden spells. Saras told him that these spells were named forbidden by the goddess Vishis, and were actually a type of ancient spell, determined to be forbidden based on the goddess's whims. After breakfast, Saras went to a banquet hosted by the Lord, and was expected back around 1 in the afternoon. Mimori said he would wait at the inn after noon. After parting, Mimori went to the forest with the slime for enhancement experiments, while Saras attended the banquet. The Lord had invited a mage skilled in breaking illusions to verify the authenticity of the Dragon Eye Chalice. As soon as Saras saw the mage, she sensed trouble, and indeed, Mimori ended up not seeing Saras at the agreed time. Meanwhile, Ayaka met with the goddess Vishis, who promised to heal another girl's hand because she was a B-rank hero. Vishis questioned why Ayaka did not join Kirihara's team, and criticized her for being capricious and disrupting the class's rhythm. When Ayaka attempted to argue, Vishis immediately took the blame, leaving Ayaka speechless and promising again to fulfill her mission as an S-rank hero in her own way. Vishis assigned all the students who failed the trials to Ayaka for training, giving her no chance to refuse and citing the king's command. Ayaka reluctantly accepted. Vishis made light of the situation, suggesting that once these people became her burden, she would face the harsh realities. However, realizing the truth would make one stronger. Vishis smiled as she sent Ayaka away, immediately changing her demeanor after she left. Mimori, unable to wait any longer for Saras, hesitated but decided to check on her. He didn't believe Saras was the type to break a promise. Indeed, on the way, he heard people discussing the banquet, saying the woman who found the Dragon Eye Chalice was the Princess Knight on the run, and that she had fled to the Dark Forest. At that moment, 3 black dragons circled above the town, belonging to the legendary Black Dragon Knights, headed towards the Dark Forest. At this time, Saras was struggling. Due to the effects of the illusion being broken, the Light Elf was in chaos. She couldn't maintain her transformation, and was having trouble facing 3 Black Dragon Knights, who were just ordinary members. The real enemy, a deputy captain, then appeared. Saras fought back with her sword, but the opponent did more than just try to kill her. He leered at her, intending to savor her beautiful body first. Meanwhile, Ayaka lost the confrontation and accidentally fell backwards. The deputy captain immediately pinned her down, ready to assault the beautiful elf. Just in the nick of time, Mimori arrived and immobilized both the dragon and the knight, making them fall asleep. Saras didn't explain much, but reminded Mimori that if he continued to accompany her, the Black Dragon Knights would also pursue him. Thus, she returned the blue dragon stone to Mimori. In response, Mimori tossed her a bag, trying to keep her from leaving, as finding another guard as capable as her would be difficult. Then Mimori asked Saras to take off her clothes. "What are you trying to do, Mimori?" After rescuing Saras, Mimori's first words were to ask her to take off her clothes. Saras almost punched him in response. He explained it was because her clothes were likely remembered by those people. He then gave Saras a new set of clothes and shared his plan. He wanted to find the Forbidden Witch and suggest hiding Saras. His desire to help Saras to this extent stemmed from her resemblance to his aunt. Saras accepted Mimori's kindness, and he went to interrogate the man from earlier about who was after Saras's life. Before the man could answer, he was killed by the suddenly appearing Dragon Knight, the leader rumored to be the strongest human, Gardland. 4 of the 5 Dragon Knights arrived and immediately began discussing how to kill Saras. The man was not with them but sent by Saras's biological father. The old king harbored inappropriate desires for his daughter and couldn't stand the thought of her with another man, preferring her death instead. Saras was shattered upon hearing the man's name from Gardland. The Dragon Knights then debated whether to kill Saras immediately or use her as a reward for their subordinates first. Overwhelmed, Saras couldn't even lift her sword. However, Gardland offered her a chance to live by dueling him. Gardland was initially interested only in Mimori after seeing him, questioning who he really was. Mimori, feeling like he was held at the throat, couldn't contain his excitement facing a more challenging adversary than the Soul Eater, and smiled. He introduced himself using a clearly fake name, which Gardland saw through. Gardland knew Mimori would seize any opportunity to attack him, but wasn't afraid. Instead, it piqued his interest even more. This allowed Mimori to gauge his personality, a man who constantly sought worthy opponents. Gardland didn't deny this, and spoke of his close ties with Alion, showing interest in the heroes summoned by the goddess from another world. Mimori saw his arrogance and decided to exploit it. As Gardland rambled on, Saras couldn't help but speak up, only to be harshly rebuked. Gardland revealed their sudden change in strategy to attack Nea was because of Saras, as the previous Holy King had refused the goddess's request to surrender the Holy Knight Saras. With everyone ignoring Saras's feelings, Mimori focused on how to defeat Gardland, finally devising a plan that could allow them to survive. He stepped forward and asked Gardland if he was looking for an enemy who could threaten his life, offering himself as that enemy. Because he is a hero from another world blessed with divine protection, he acts independently from other heroes as instructed by the goddess. Mimori, aware that the strongest human, Gardland, can see through lies, did not lie but merely omitted some truths. For instance, the reason for his solo action was his significantly higher level, which Gardland would likely assume indicates his unique status in the goddess's eyes, raising Gardland's expectations. Mimori took advantage of this to make his request, to be allowed to leave and return stronger to defeat Gardland. Intrigued by how Mimori planned to grow stronger, Gardland listened as Mimori explained his intention to travel to the Golden Demon Group. During an impassioned speech, Mimori subtly moved closer, stirring Gardland's enthusiasm enough to actually let him go, promising a future duel. However, this mercy was only for Mimori. Saras was still to be killed. Explaining his need to use Saras to gain power, Gardland, showing a rare mercy, agreed to spare her too. When others tried to calm him, Gardland silenced them with a direct order and informed another Dragon Knight that they must not harm these two. After issuing these commands, Gardland mounted his dragon to leave, but at this moment, they were within Mimori's range. Mimori released a group paralysis skill, knocking both dragon and riders to the ground. Despite the fall, Gardland and his subordinates managed to move, showing their strength. Unwilling to leave future threats, Mimori insisted on dueling immediately, decisively attacking them. After poisoning them, 3 of the men quickly succumbed. But Gardland, living up to his reputation as the strongest human, still managed to raise his weapon, although he could not complete his attack, and fell again. Taking no chances, Mimori focused intently on applying skills to Gardland, who, with his dying breath, fired a flare to alert his troops waiting elsewhere. Mimori told Saras to flee while he stayed to witness Gardland's death. Saras, now his guard, refused to leave alone, and they quietly awaited the arrival of the Black Dragon Knights. Seeing their leader in such disarray, the knights hesitated. Gardland, realizing Mimori's attacks had a range limit, advised his subordinates to attack from a distance, determined to kill them both. However, Mimori remained calm, merging with his pet slime to extend tendrils everywhere, channeling his attacks through them towards the knights, eventually wiping them out. A tendril then touched Gardland's forehead, eliminating many formidable opponents at once. Memory's panel buzzed with system notifications, unlocking new skills. One that embeds a violent urge in people, enhancing the lethality of his paralysis, and another that obscures vision with darkness. Knowing that these people wanted to use Saras as a tool for their desires, Memory felt no remorse in killing them. As the Black Dragon Knights died one by one, Memory's level quickly increased. Gardland held on until the end, questioning who Memory really was. Memory stated that he was not a noble hero meant to save the world, but merely an avenger. Hearing this, Gardland could no longer hold on and closed his eyes forever. Afterward, Memory also helped conceal Saras's whereabouts, deepening their bond. Suddenly, Memory asked Saras if the dragons ridden by the 5 dragon knights were different in size from the others. If so, he should have eliminated the remaining one earlier. Meanwhile, the class leader and the others were still training hard. However, today, the goddess Vishis did not appear and sent her proxy Kiki instead. One defiant person was not convinced and was knocked down by Kiki with a punch. Then, Kiki prepared the rest for the next stage of their training. On Memory's side, he had already earned Saras's loyalty. She knelt on one knee, vowing to use her power for his vengeance, especially since Memory had risked his life to save her. Grateful for this act, she was willing to endure any treatment as long as Memory deemed it right. Memory accepted her goodwill and decided he would someday repay her kindness. As for Kiki, upon returning to Vishis, she was asked to lick Vishis's feet to prove her loyalty, which Kiki did, tenderly licking them.